Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching at home. Writer and podcast host B. Kwame joins us again today. Always a pleasure to have you, B.
So good to be here, always. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got some juicy topics. Let's dive in. You guys are ready? Yeah. Let's do it. All right, so let's start off with Jessica Alba. She has us talking this morning after news came out that she and her husband, Cash Warren, are divorcing. I know, very sad. All right, and an older interview surfaced where Jessica admitted that they've been more like roommates for years. And it's hard to avoid the roommate dynamic after years with your partner. So we have a lot of long-termers on the table and one divorcee. So I'm curious, what do you guys think about this?
It's just us, right? Like just us four.
Yeah, no one else.
Okay, so then I can talk openly about this because my libido is dead. It has been dead for a while. And so this fear of that roommate sort of scenario sneaks into my mind because it actually, I think, contributed to ending a relationship a while back. But this time it feels different because in the last time, I didn't even want to be affectionate. This time, I want affection. I want closeness. I want
Just
hugs.
no penetration.
Just put it right out there. Putting it right out there.
A lot of hand-holding.
Yeah, a lot of hand-holding.
Gotcha.
A lot of hand-holding. And
heavy petting, including with your new pet.
Including with my new pet.
Yes,
Exactly.
the only cat you want to play with.
But I feel like I consciously, every time I walk in the door when I get back from work, I'm like, be grateful, because this is so transitory. Like relationships can end, and I don't want to take Simon for granted. It's this weird state I'm in.
Yeah,
I have so many more questions.
Interestingly.
Blame it on the cat.
Blame it on the cat.
I'm curious because, Cynthia, you're also in a very long-term relationship.
Yes.
So how are you guys keeping it hot and steamy?
Well, I will say, first of all, I think a little bit, for me, again, it is an important aspect of my relationship, and that's not true for everyone. I try to just keep it regular. It's kind of like, you end up at the gym, you don't want to be at the gym, but then you start being at the gym and you're like, oh, I feel so good afterwards. I think of sex in a similar way. Exactly. But it's just kind of like you keep the motor going.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things that also has helped is reminding yourself that you have to see your partner sometimes. And that's hard to do when you're in the drudgery of everyday life.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by see them?
I mean, like, see them in an outside context, outside of like your home, the four walls where you're often doing business. I'll tell you this story. We went to a 50th birthday party of a friend recently. This was just in the fall. And we were out there and we both were like feeling good. We got dressed up and he doesn't wear his wedding ring, right? So I do, but he doesn't often. So we were out and we were talking and this woman, a woman came up to us and we were all talking. I didn't know her. And I could see that she was just like zeroing in on him. And she was kind of like putting the vibes out. And he was sort of flirting back a little bit. No, I loved this, guys. It was great. This was like something where I was able to see him. And the worst part though was he walked away and she goes, so what's his story? And I was like, oh,
You realized that's true?
Yeah, she did. She did that. So I was just kind of like, oh, well, I was like, we've been together for like 24 years. And you could just see, she was like, oh, because she didn't expect that.
That is a side hustle that I could actually do as a business, going and flirting.
There you go.
What do you mean a side hustle? What do you want? Going and flirting
couples,
with
right?
men to help couples.
Get the spark back.
I
love it. I love it.
Okay, so
flirting.
Girl, that's dangerous territory.
Was this an element, like with the roommate syndrome?
It was, and I will say something that is relatable to Jessica and Cash's situation is the presence of children. So I think it says in the article they were married for about 17 years. They've got 3 children. Their oldest is 16. So that means they've been mom and dad for a lot of their marriage. And I know that when I was pregnant with my first daughter, a lot of people laughed and said, you're gonna have kids now, the spark is gone, you're never gonna have sex, you're never gonna go out on dates. And they laughed about it like it's inevitable and that's just how it has to be. So I was very cognizant about wanting to fight against that, making time for dates, making sure that we didn't call each other mom and dad when we weren't actually with the kid. And see, like you said, seeing your partner, not necessarily like seeing him flirting maybe with Jess at some point, right? But seeing your partner as more than just their utilitarian
That's
aspect of like the service and the responsibility of who they are and what they do.
And knowing
like,
other people could desire them. Like that's the thing,
That's the
right?
thing.
But it
Yeah.
also sounds like you're saying you can't lose yourself. Like you're not just mom.
You're
you
not
are
just
still
mom.
B. And
That is
this why
like
you
the
don't
hill I
wanna-
will always die on.
It's at the top of the list of reasons why, like, when people are like, don't you want to get married? I'm like, you know, I sit around you guys all the time. You're not exactly selling me this whole dream. It doesn't look that great where you're like, oh, I haven't had sex in 6 months. It's like, oh, that's great. You guys sharing a bed doing that? Oh, that's fantastic. It is a fear of like losing that spark, but I also am realistic because I've been in relationships that you can't have that rip your clothes off sex
every time
for 30, 40 years.
Exactly.
It's just not, and I kind of think when I'm older, I think I will look forward to a partner who just wants to cuddle.
yeah, I like what you said, that it's not for every couple.
No, it's not for everyone.
exactly.
Anyway, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or no strokes.
Or no
strokes. Are we so obsessed with capturing memories that we're missing our kids, or in my case, my cat's lives? A writer for The Atlantic argues that it's time to put the cameras down and show our kids and cats how to be present in the moment. So do you agree that parents are caught up in capturing this?
Oh, the whole audience is agreeing.
So I will say, yes, I've been on both sides of this argument. And I will say, like, thinking back to my own childhood, obviously technology was different, but my parents did a really good job of documenting things. We've got lots of photo albums, lots of pictures. So when I am recording their first steps or recording them, their solo or them in the play or whatever they're doing, I might look like that annoying mom who's just recording and not watching, but I'm thinking about documenting it for them to see later when they're older, having something to give back to them.
Yeah.
However, I've got two daughters, 10 and 7, and my 7-year-old is extremely, extremely cognizant of when she wants the phone and when she doesn't want the phone. Meaning, when she wants me to have it open, and when she says, "Mommy, put it down. I just want you to look at me."
Yeah.
Exactly. So she's very good at calling me out.
Wow.
And I'm taking my cues from her because she will see that, you know, maybe I'm thinking about it from that way of, let me give her something, let me have something to show her later.
But she wants you.
She just wants to see my eyes on her. And so we try to work that out too.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, listen. I think this is not just for parents with kids. I think this is for all of us. For New Year's Eve, I went to see Bruno Mars in Las Vegas. I know, it was really good. Nice. And what was special about that concert, not just him, but it was the first time I've ever been to a venue where I had to lock away my phone. So no one had access to their phone. And I realized during this concert where everybody's locked into his performance and we're all dancing and singing, it was the first time in decades I'd been in an event where no one had their phone out. And I found myself just doing this a lot, because I was like, oh my gosh, we're all doing the same thing. And I'm like, after the concert, I'm like, I wish every single event would do the same thing so that we could be in the moment, because I went to see Janet Jackson the night before. I know I'm living a hard life. But they didn't have that rule. And the whole time it was like, who was recording? One guy who recorded the whole thing. Another person had their light on. It was annoying people. And I'm like, no, we need to do more of staying in the moment. Although I hear what you're saying. It depends on your family. You may not have all those photos and those memories. And when you lose them, like I lost my dad in September of last year, you do want to hold on to all of those videos. But there's a balancing act that we have to do, that we do need to be present, and we're not present enough. Not just the parents. All of us are guilty of that.
Yeah.
Well, I just was thinking about the not being, and I agree. It's like in order to live life and remember it well, you have to be kind of tapped into all your senses. And the phone makes you really zeroed in on your eyes, right? And you're forgetting about the smells and the tastes and the tastes and like touches, all those things. But I think also one of the things that struck me is that as I go through my phone, and we all have this ability, like the Apple kind of will construct a video of your memories without you asking for it. And on the one hand, it's lovely, and on the other hand, I find myself kind of like living in the past. I'm constantly being reminded of, like, my son doesn't look like this anymore. People are aging. Things look different. I look different. And I wonder if in a way that kind of just holds us, again, takes us out of the moment of living fully and enjoying this and putting us in the past. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying. The author of this calls it, we're all missing out on collective effervescence. That's those moments, you know, when you get goosebumps and you're with someone and you're sharing this beautiful thing.
And you look at them and you guys are like locked into the moment.
But it's that idea for me, I feel looped into this group because the idea of like, oh my God, the sunset, let me just capture it.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm getting to the moment, but let me just capture it. Because if I don't take a photo of it, did it even happen? And I think it's the idea of if that pause is affecting that collective effervescence, that's a sign that maybe you're ruining the magic.
We are having magic here today. Thank you for this collective effervescence. So Allison Holker is being called out for sharing her late husband, Stephen Twitch Boss's personal struggles while promoting her upcoming memoir. So Allison told People that she went through Twitch's journals and found out about his alleged drug addiction and childhood abuse. So the question is should she have shared intimate details of his life?
Right, everybody. This is a tough one. I'm triggered by this because I feel like there are certain relationships that we have where there's a level of vulnerability and trust that I'm going to share who I really am, the parts that the world doesn't get to see. And I think maybe your mom, your sister, but most definitely your partner is the type of relationship where you expect that. And so her writing this book and telling us all of these very personal things about him that, frankly, I'm a fan of Twitch and I didn't need to know. I don't know about her, but I didn't really need to know about all of this stuff. And for her to share all of these stories for profit, I think that's the problem that I have with it. If she was just doing a sit-down, tell-all interview with, say, Oprah, and she was like, this is my perspective of what my life was with my husband, I think it'd be different. But the fact that she's selling a book and that his family, who has been very vocal on social media, alleging that she made them sign NDAs to attend the funeral,
even the
including his own mother, and that they're saying that this is not an accurate account of who he is. And then she's been getting a lot of backlash, and she responded by saying, he would have wanted me to tell this story. He would have wanted me to share. And I'm like, no, darling, because if he wanted to, the fact is he could have, and we would have bought that book if he wrote it. But you're writing this book and you're exposing all of these things about his life, and it feels like you're taking advantage of that vulnerability.
I agree, but it's not a memoir about him. It's her memoir. And
but she's included a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, because they were married. So that's where I think it gets a little tricky. No, you guys disagree. But if it's her memoir and she's been married to this guy and he passed away, doesn't he play a huge role in her telling?
What if also, I mean,
so if you were going to write a memoir, then would you cut out like the talking about any kids, husbands, anyone? So your life is not about them. Just wait. You'd only include the good stuff. Because we don't want a story. We don't want a hagiography about saints.
No, but she also.
What do we want? We don't want complicated. She
brought up drug use. There was also no drugs in his system when he passed away. She's bringing up things. She's bringing up excerpts from his journal. These are very personal things. Not when we went on vacation, when we fell in love. These are things that are specific to him.
What if you're going to learn? Like, I don't know if anyone else watched. I didn't watch the whole thing, but there's a documentary about Avicii, who was a DJ. He died. Also died by suicide. I think he's 28 years old. And there's a documentary, his family did it, and they are getting into the details, as far as I know, because I think they were hoping that this won't happen again, that people will learn from this person's story. So could there be an aspect of that? I haven't read this, I don't know, I know there's a lot of controversy, but could the energy that she has behind this be like, I want to help people spot the signs, I want to help people.
I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical that is her ultimate wish with this project. And just going back to Jess's point, right? I'm thinking as an author, I'm gonna plug my book for a second. The Book of Possibilities, coming out in April. But that is an essay collection that is based very much on my life. However, my life intersects with my daughter's lives, my mom's life, my friends' lives, and I incorporate some of them in some of these essays. But I was very, very worried about how they would feel about the way I'm telling a story that does not allow them to have their version to tell their story. So there's some essays that I ended up scrapping because I thought I want to be authentic to who I am and what I want to share, but it's not worth damaging the sensitivity. So when I think about somebody who has passed away, who has not given explicit permission to tell their story in any sense, which we have not gotten that. She says he would have wanted me to. He didn't tell you to. He didn't say you could. I'm just really, it really makes me cringe, and it makes my blood kind of just run cold to think about taking advantage of the vulnerability of the relationship you have with someone and kind of just throwing all that aside and saying, well, I'm gonna tell my story, but my story has something to do with his supposed childhood sexual abuse. What are we talking about?
So many
here?
memoirs are about people. Like I read Prince's first wife's memoir, and there were some people saying like, oh, he was so private, he wouldn't have wanted this. To me, as a fan, it gave me such a window into him, and I don't think she went into like tabloid territory. Anyway,
No.
And that's the level
I just don't
to it.
think
Go to
saints
collecting
are...
a check.
True.
But you know what? He didn't leave her a lot of money, and that's part of this as well.
That's part
we
of it
don't
as
know
well.
her financial
But
situation.
she's an adult who can still make money. She's still of an age where she can go out, get a job, dance, do all kinds of stuff to make
This
money.
is a good spicy topic.
Right? She doesn't have to expose
I
her
love
husband.
these kind of topics.
She doesn't have to expose her husband's secrets to make a dollar.
Listen, again, I don't know the story very well, but they have 3 children together. I don't know how much money he made or she made, but like, is it possible that again she's making this money so that she can help these kids survive?
There's there's integrity involved in this stuff, and then when money gets involved, the integrity goes out the
I've been
window.
trust Jason to write my memoir. I'm just gonna say this right
I'm
now.
glad you said
I
it,
trust him to. I don't have anything that I would hide.
This is so interesting, but then I'm also going to put on the table. Does it mean that then we have to let a certain amount of time pass?
Maybe that's it too.
Before a
Maybe
memoir,
that's
because
true.
we write memoirs down the line about people
maybe that's it
without
too.
their implicit permission,
true.
right?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God, that was great.
So Maria Shriver shared in a podcast interview that she made her kids stand up out of respect whenever she entered a room. And guess what? They're grown adults and they still do this to today. So B, is this politeness? Is this like going way too far?
This is way too far. And what this is something that I think a lot of parents get confused, which is teaching respect versus teaching deference to my ego as your superior.
Whoa.
Yes.
Damn.
And I don't like that because I think that the power dynamic between a parent and a child is one that is obviously necessary, but one that can get very skewed very quickly when then ego starts to come into play. So she has her children stand up and when she enters the room. She has them stop everything they're doing and look at her. She says in this interview, she tells them to write her thank you notes when she's taken them somewhere. What is in that is respect, and what in that is feed my ego as your mother. It doesn't really...
Or just habitual tradition, is it? Like that she learned it?
Well, she learned it.
You know what I mean?
She is part of the
She
Kennedy
learned
family.
it.
Yeah.
But eventually you're going to have a child somewhere down the line who's going to say, this doesn't make sense. I don't need to learn respect this way. I don't want to have this type of relationship with my mother. So there's respect and there's ego involvement. And she's doing a lot of ego.
Wow. That's interesting take.
Good.
I had a slightly different take. Only because I didn't have to stand up every time my parents walked into a room, because I think that'd be a lot of standing up. It's like, oh, she's back.
Because we all had like 3 to 5 rooms.
It was like,
right?
that's a lot of standing up. But I did have to, whenever my parents called me wherever they were, I had to answer yes, mom, or yes, dad.
Oh, yes.
I could never say what.
You cannot say a
That is
what.
certain death, or not respond. The not responding. And you know what? When you're a kid, I know what they were doing it. They were making sure that I had a lot of respect for them and respect for elders. I also, whenever we had adults come to the house, I always had to greet them with whatever time of day. So good afternoon, Mr. and such, nice to see you.
Yeah.
I had to get up from wherever I was to come and greet them, and then I could go back to my room. And at the time as a kid, I just did it because it was just whatever. But now as an adult, I really appreciate that I have those things instilled in me, because I meet a lot of socially inept adults, and I'm like, wow, you don't know how to make eye contact, you don't know how to shake a hand, you don't understand that there's an elderly lady here that perhaps you should stand up. And recently we had a young lady, 4 years old, whose dad is right over there. His name is George, he works with us, whose parents have instilled that. And I'll tell you something, when I meet a 4-year-old child who's able to give me eye contact and say, hi, my name's Katerina, I was like,
you melt. You melt. Yeah,
So
because it does feel rare.
I know some people think it's too much, but I loved it.
I think there's a balance.
And I'm gonna adopt her and take her with me.
Watch out, George. I think there's a bit of a balance, though, and I think what's most important to me as a parent is making sure that they are respectful when I'm not watching. That it's not just out of rote, that they actually learned it and they believe it. I'll tell you this quick story, which is the story that Jason's dad often tells about Jason. So he was a single father, he was raising his son, and his son was a bit of a disaster, Jason. He was had a messy room, he wasn't always very communicative, he wasn't doing seemingly doing his chores all the time. And yet when Jason's dad went to parent-teacher night, the teacher was like, Jason's so communicative, communicative. He always keeps his desk so neat, and he's so polite
So
and
he's
so
saving it for
respectful.
school?
Well, this is it. So Jason's dad comes back home and he goes, "What the heck? Like, this is what your teacher is saying about you. Why are you that way? Why aren't you that way here?" And he said, "Well, Dad, because here's where I don't have to be that way." And the subtext within that is that I feel safe, I feel seen, and I can be myself in a kind of like freewheeling way at home. Now, some people may take issue with that, but to me, I thought there was something beautiful. He knows how to behave in the world, but it comes home and is the comfort and his more authentic self. So there's something to be said for that.
Also, listen, I know we're running out of time, but there are also a lot of teachers and a lot of counselors are like, we're not seeing that. We're getting these kids and they don't have, their parents have no role, so they come to us and we don't even know what to do. And sometimes the parents are asking the teachers, "Hey, can you get my kid to listen to me?" And it's like, what is happening here?
They're listening.
So I don't know.
They are listening. I'll just say that Jaya, I often will hear people say, "Oh, Jaya gave his please and thank you." So he doesn't always do it at home, but he does it out in the world. So anyway, B, it is a pleasure to always.
Always. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.